In today's Locked On Pelicans, I'll tell you the Pels loss to the Kings shows the number one thing they need to do this offseason. It's Locked On Pelicans. Let's go.
You are Locked On Pelicans, your daily New Orleans Pelicans podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to another edition of Locked On Pelicans, the daily podcast covering your favorite team, the New Orleans Pelicans in NBA, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, available wherever you get your podcasts and available on YouTube. I'm your host, Pelicans Insider, credential member of the media, Jake Madison, at NOLA Jake on Twitter, here with y'all on this Thursday, day after the Pelicans lose to the Sacramento Kings 119-111. This loss tells you something really important about this team and something they absolutely, without a doubt, need to address this offseason. I'll tell you what it is. You can already probably guess, though. That's what we're going to lead with in today's episode of Locked On Pelicans. We're going to look at Zion Williamson still being real good, even in limited minutes. And then there's a sneaky little need that they're going to need to maybe also look at adding to this team this offseason. Today's episode of Locked On Pelicans here is, no, we don't even need to do that today. There you go. So thank you for making Locked On Pelicans your first listen today and every day. We're here Monday through Friday, the number one Pelicans podcast, covering everything you want to know about this Pelicans team. So please subscribe wherever you get your podcast. Join over 11,000 Pelicans fans on YouTube as well and become an everyday. And that means you listen Monday through Friday to Locked On Pelicans. So let's get into the 119-111 loss to the Sacramento Kings. There is something, particularly in the first quarter, that really should stand out to you here. And I'll throw a number at you. Try and guess what this is. Wait, that's the incorrect stat here. I know it, but let's double check. The number is 3. The number is 3. It's a first quarter stat. Do you know what that is? That's the number of defensive rebounds the Pelicans had in the first period. The Sacramento Kings missed 8 shots. The Pelicans rebounded 3 of those, which led to, we can do the math, we're all smart, 5 offensive rebounds for the Sacramento Kings. In the first half of this game, the Sacramento Kings grabbed 9 offensive boards. The Pelicans did get better in the second half with that, admittedly, but overall, they really struggled rebounding in this game. And it led to a bunch of second chance points for the Sacramento Kings, and that's how this game was won for them overall. The Pelicans had a defensive rebounding rate of 66%. That meant they were grabbing 2 out of every 3 misses. That's a pretty atrocious number, truthfully. It was better in the second half, but that's a really bad number. Right now on the season, the Pelicans are dead last in defensive rebounding percentage. This is different than rebounds per game. Defensive rebounding percentage is basically what percent of all available, potential defensive rebounds do you get? You could look on it on a per game basis, but that's influenced by pace and things like that, the amount of possessions per game, the number of shot attempts, etc. Looking at it in terms of there were this many defensive rebounding opportunities, this is how many you got. That's what the percentage is. They're at 72% this season, so opponents are grabbing 28% of their own misses. That's worst in the league. David Griffin, in his media availability the other day, said this is a historically bad number, and guess what? Yes, it is. And this is leading to a lot of Pelicans losses. And as happy as I am with how Misi has developed this year, this is not something that you can go into next season with and think you're going to be a competitive team and make the playoffs if you don't address this. So what this game says, and it was just evident from the jump in this game, the Pelicans need to upgrade the center position. Again, Misi has been coming along, but it doesn't mean that you can't upgrade that spot. So they desperately need to add another center. Now, you might be saying, we knew it was going to be bad going into this year. The Pelicans actually even knew it would be bad going into this year. And I agree with you. Here's what they have tried, right? I said this on the show the other day, and I've repeated this. You can't make a trade if there's no opportunity to make a trade. They have tried. They have tried for Jared Allen multiple times. They have tried for Miles Turner. They've tried for basically like every center available that you could go and get that kind of makes sense for this team. And they failed to agree to a deal with the other team and get that guy in. So, there's one thing to be like, we're just not going to address it. We're not going to try and do anything about it, and it'll be what it'll be. It's another thing to know that it's a bad thing for your team and that you try and do it, but just fail. And that's what's happened here. They have failed to address the center position. Not for lack of trying, but at the end of the day, it's still a failure. You could also not try, and it would still be a failure, right? This is a results-oriented business that everybody is in. So they have tried and failed to upgrade the center position and bring in the type of player that is going to make a lot of sense for them. This offseason, you cannot fail. And that's if the front office is still here. And I truthfully don't know what they're going to end up doing here. But at this point, I think we can say you have to upgrade the center spot. That is the number one thing on the list for the Pelicans to do this offseason. Kelly Olynyk is a nice backup. That's not going to fix your rebounding issues. Look, Zion Williamson, while playing power forward, doesn't have the body of an elite rebounder. He's 6'6". You might point to Charles Barkley or some other players. Those guys are very much the outliers and not the norm for someone 6'6". So keep that in mind that there are some limitations for Zion when it comes to rebounding. It's just an unfortunate reality of the situation. It makes it tough to build around him. Among the other reasons why it's tough. He did have 9 boards in this one, 6 defensive, but that wasn't going to be enough. And you saw them just getting, out. It wasn't outworked. They were fighting for boards. They were just outsized. This team needs to add some size this offseason to try and counterbalance this. This is probably the most glaring thing you see on this team. Misi's great. 5 defensive boards. Fewer than Zion Williamson. He's your starting center. Played literally 1 second less. Fewer than Zion Williamson did. You've got to upgrade that area. You cannot fail at this again. Not if you want to be a playoff team next year. And that's likely what they're going to try and do. They have to upgrade the center position. You saw it in this game why they need to do that. So coming up next, let's talk about Zion Williamson. How did he look in this game? He looked real good. Let's break it all down. That's coming up here next in today's episode of Locked On Pelicans. Today's episode of Locked On Pelicans is brought to you by Wayfair. Maybe you just, it's the holiday hustle and you need to give your home a little TLC, declutter a little bit, give it a refresh, help you get back into a routine, get some creative juices or something going. Or maybe you just want to get it ready for Mardi Gras, have it feeling festive here with the season that we're in. So whether you're tidying up, cleaning out, or you just want to give your space a new look to start the year, Wayfair has everything you need all within your budget. So I actually get a lot of my art from Wayfair. I have a couple of really cool like Jordan shoe prints and other things that were on Wayfair. It's awesome. My whole place is furnished with Wayfair here. And I love the free and hassle-free delivery. Even for larger items, you can get killed on all those shipping charges and things like that. Not with Wayfair here. It's really great. So there's something for every style and every home, no matter your space or budget. And Wayfair makes it easy to tackle your New Year's home goals with endless inspiration for every space. So give your home the refresh it needs with Wayfair. Head to wayfair.com right now. That's Wayfair, WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. And thank you for making Locked On Pelicans your first listen today and every day. We're here Monday through Friday, the #1 Pelicans podcast, covering everything you want to know about this Pelicans team. So please subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Join over 11,000 Pelicans fans on YouTube as well, and become an everydayer. That means you listen Monday through Friday to the Locked On Pelicans podcast. And now for your second listen, just go read the newsletter instead. Locked On Pelicans delivered right to your inbox every single day. You can subscribe over at lockedondaily.com. It's one stop for ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your inbox. So let's look at Zion Williamson in this game. We wanted to see, I talked about this the other day in the show. I want to see more proof of concept here. Zion Williamson is Trey Murphy, I feel, has checked the box of, that's like a key, not just a core guy going forward, but like a build-around piece going forward. He had 19 points in this game. Not a great shooting night for him, 1 of 6 from 3, but he contributed with 4 rebounds, 5 assists, and a block as well. There you go. Trey's good. We know that. But let's look at Zion, because he started off slow, then all of a sudden just kind of exploded, and you go, oh yeah, dude's still real good in limited minutes. He hasn't played above 30 minutes since he's come back from this hamstring injury this season. So what he is doing and the efficiency that he's doing it is truly an incredible thing. The Pelicans starters were all negative except for Zion in this game. Trey Murphy was a minus 18. Messi was a minus 5. CJ a minus 23. Jose a minus 2. Zion Williamson was a plus 13 in 27 minutes, almost 28 minutes. 33 points, 13 of 18 shooting. He went 1 of 1 from 3. I like that he took that. 6 of 9 from the line. 3 offensive boards, 6 defensive boards, 9 total rebounds, 7 assists, 2 steals, 1 turnover, 4 fouls. He's been awesome. His per 36-minute numbers, and the reason I like that stat is, one, it can kind of equalize guys that aren't playing the same amount of minutes to kind of try and compare them a little bit. But per 36 minutes is about the number of minutes a starter would generally play in the NBA. So you kind of put everyone at starter level minutes. How does it look? Zion's per 36-minute numbers are really, really good, and he had a slow start to the year. But if you look at it recently, his stats are pretty incredible here. 40 points in under 28 minutes of action the other day. In this game, 33 points in under 28 minutes of action. 13 of 18, that's 72.2%. He's still a very special player when he's out there on the court. And while he played in this game and likely won't play tonight on the second night of a back-to-back, I think you also look at this and go, he will play back-to-backs next season. He will. And his minutes will go up. He's not going to be on a minutes restriction, next year like he is now, particularly if he does the right things in the offseason. It's a bit of a big if, but there you go. The offensive efficiency is what's going to be really important for this team, making the most of every single possession. And that's where a smart shot diet, a smart shot chart really comes into play. And when you look at what Zion does of getting to the rim, putting pressure on the defense like that, getting fouled, getting to the line, that's real good. He took 2 shots outside of the restricted area. One was the 3 that he made, and the other was just a slight kind of like not jump shot, but kind of like push shot from the right, and it didn't go in. What he can do in the paint and be that efficient is making the most of every single possession that you have. When you have Trey, who can score from 3 the way that he does, it changes a game completely. And when you have 2 players like that, and this is not going to be a shot at anyone who's no longer on the team, so bear with me here. When you have 2 players like that, that can make you a really scary elite offense. And so if you look at the 2-man game of Zion Williamson and Trey Murphy, or just those 2 being out there on the court with their skill sets and the way that they play and the high efficiency, there is something that you can build from there, assuming you think Zion Williamson can stay healthy and is going to be a mature enough guy doing all the right sort of things. There I'm not guaranteeing it, can definitely be something there. It looks pretty good so far. And with Zion playing like this, if he were to play 36 minutes, you figure they win this game. They would have won a couple of other games too. That's how well he has played at this point in time and what he's been doing. So he's a lot of fun. The other thing about Zion Williamson this season is defensively, he's been good. He's been good this year. Not the Zion that we're used to seeing where he's kind of not trying on defense. He's forcing steals. He's being a game changer on that side of the ball. Per 36 minutes this year, he's up to 1.3 blocks per game. His career high in terms of per 36 minutes is 0.8 last year. Steals is 1.6. So you're going to tell me this guy is basically averaging 3 steals or blocks per game? That'll work. You want some better rebounding from him? He's averaging 9.3 rebounds per 36 minutes. It blows the other previous numbers out of the water. When you look at him playing right now, since coming back from the injury, you can see just a different level of hustle and effort from him than what we have seen before. The steals and blocks are good, but you also see him just playing good one-on-one defense in general, and that's a pretty important thing for him to be doing too. You want him to be out there defending at the high level that he is, and at least slowing guys down one-on-one. They can't pick on him like they used to be able to pick on him. The Pelicans don't need to hide him as much as they were hiding him in the past. That is all really encouraging for having him be the core guy and the guy that you build around going forward. He could play back-to-backs right now. They're choosing not to for tanking purposes, and there's no reason for him to, other than you want to see him play, and I get that too. But he's having like a quietly very good season because the per 36-minute numbers look so good since he's come back from injury, and it's starting to kind of be that proof of concept a little bit here. So hopefully we see him. I'm trying to see if I can get the per 36 minutes from him. I can do the math on it, which I'm not going to do while I'm doing the show here. Zion Williamson per 36 minutes this season, and then we'll put in a date from it and see. No, StatMuse doesn't pull it up like that. I'll get him for you because I would like to see how well he's been playing per 36 minutes in terms of the scoring here, because that feels exceptionally high. The rebounding and everything else too feels exceptionally high here when it comes to Zion Williamson and what he's capable of doing, right? Since he's come back from the injury, he's averaging, it's not counting this game, so this number will actually go up, 24.5 points per game in just 26.7 minutes. So what does that equate to? That's basically 9.17. We're going to times 36. He's averaging, since he's come back from the injury, I can kind of do some of this pretty quickly, like 33 points per 36 minutes. That's what he's doing right now. Now, can he actually sustain that level of production for 36 minutes? It probably likely taper off a little bit. You get to a point of diminishing returns when it comes to some of these guys, and maybe Zion's one of them. But it shows you that can really be up there for him and what he's capable of doing. And as his field goal percentage continues to get better, I think you're going to see some really good standout performances from him going forward. So if you don't have to, if you still believe in Zion, things look pretty good overall here. If you don't, I get it too. He's got to do this the rest of the way. The rest of the way is a very important thing for him to be able to do. So coming up next, this game also showed you why they need another smaller thing that you might not even realize they need to try and add this off season. Let's break that down. That's coming up here next in today's episode of Locked On Pelicans. And thank you for making Locked On Pelicans your first listen today and every day. We're here Monday through Friday, the number one Pelicans podcast covering everything you want to know about this Pelicans team. So please subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Join over 11,000 Pelicans fans on YouTube as well and become an everydayer. That means you listen to Locked On Pelicans Monday through Friday. If you're an everydayer, let me know in the comments down below. By the way, if you see me at the arena, say hi. I try and talk with everyone that comes over and says hi, and I really appreciate all of the love that y'all have for me and the show here too. It means a lot, especially in a season that is exhausting, trying all of those words like it is this year. By the way, for your second listen, Kellen Moore, new Saints head coach. It's official. He was in the building last night, sitting courtside with his family. I'm excited. Super Bowl winning guy coming in to be the next head coach of the team. Doesn't really have past ties to Mickey Loomis, which makes me feel better. Go check out Locked On Saints. Ross Jackson's going to break down everything about this hire over there. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So let's wrap up today's show looking at one other area that the Pelicans definitely are going to need to address this offseason. And you could see it with how well at times the starters played in this game. They're going to need to add another point guard this offseason. It's unfortunate because of the injury to DeJounte Murray, who likely, I don't want to say for sure, we don't know yet, likely won't be ready to start the year. But you're going to need to add a point guard because a point guard is pretty important to the team. Jose Alvarado, we look at the starters and their plus minuses. Zion was a plus 13. The next closest to him as a starter was Jose, who was a -2. You need to have these guys out there. helping organize the offense. Jose in this game had 9 assists. You see the difference with a point guard out there on the court. His defense was also very good in this game too. You need that kind of guy. So you can rely on Jose. And I've said, the everydayers of the show know this. I'm not doubting Jose Alvarado anymore. I've done that before, and that was a dumb thing to do. But now you do realize you're going to be without your starting point guard. Can Jose do that the whole time? I'm not quite sure. And so you're going to need to try and add another point guard to this roster. They're going to have some limited flexibility. Maybe that point guard is in the draft. Maybe. Maybe it's you need to try and trade someone, Kelly Olynyk, and someone else could probably do that. Olynyk and Jordan Hawkins is probably how you're going to get about a $20 million player back into the building. I'd like that to be a center, but it might end up being a point guard in some capacity too, or you still need to address that. Because look, if it relies on a point guard to kind of make this team work, and they thought that this offseason, and then in game 1, Murray breaks his hand after being away from the team because of his mother suffering a stroke. And now the Achilles injury that he has, and if he's not ready to start the year, you can't go through 2 months of being bad till he steps back out there on the court. And even then, he still might not be himself just yet, and it's going to take a little bit. So they are probably going to need to add a point guard in some capacity here. The way that I would kind of stack rank some of these priorities here is like center number 1. Number 2 is point guard, or number 3 could be just toughness in general. They need some of that, I think. They need a little more toughness on this roster. Maybe that's Bruce Brown Jr. getting re-signed because he's definitely a tough player. He plays a little bit of point guard too for you, kind of does it all. He played point guard in Denver. He's kind of been a little bit of everything. He was guarding Sabonis in this game too. And yeah, you're going to need to upgrade that, or you're just going to need some insurance there, I think, for everything, because you can't risk getting off to an awful start next year, because at that point, then you maybe do need to blow it up, and maybe you need to blow it up anyway because of this injury to DeJounte Murray. So it puts the team in an uncomfortable, little bit of an awkward spot right now, as you'd like to not have to spend resources on getting a point guard, even salary on a point guard, but it's definitely going to be something they need to do. But you can't do that at the expense of a center. You can't do that necessarily at the expense of adding toughness to this team too. How would you rank those 3 things? Center, toughness, point guard. Point guard, toughness, center. Put them in order for me in the comments down below. So let's end it there for Locked On Pelicans. I appreciate y'all so much for listening. As always, I'm your host, Jake Madison, at NOLA Jake on Twitter. And I'll be back with y'all tomorrow to recap tonight's game, back-to-back against the Sacramento Kings. See y'all next time.